Loading. Welcome to Access the Animus.
Hello everyone, welcome to a new video here on Access the Animus. Ubisoft Forward has finally come to a close, the embargo is over and we're finally ready to open the floodgates on everything we know about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Very recently our team was able to get their hands on a demo of the game set in the East Anglia portion of the Indian map, and we're here to tell you our first impressions and a general overview about the game and its newly showcased features, but in the coming days we're going to share more videos and deep dives on specific topics. Thus, we really suggest you to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon, as the coming days will surely be a treat. So, without further ado, let's get started. Today we're going to analyze some of the main features of the game and how they have been implemented, at least in the demo that we tested. Thus, we're going to have a look at combat and boss fights, stealth, navigation and free running, inventory management and the abilities and skills, while in a separate video we'll also be discussing the world events, side activities, raids, assaults, the sound music and voice acting department, and last but not least, the main story arc contained in the demo. Stick around, we have a lot to discuss. Combat seems to deliver on the idea of being brutal and visceral as it was promoted after the announcement of the game. It looks mostly intuitive and pretty varied. More specifically, the dual wielding matched with the different kinds of weapons does wonders in allowing players to choose different strategies to approach the enemies. Players can choose to go with a shield and an axe, allowing them to parry hostile blows and deliver subsequent finishers called stun attacks, or they can hold dual shields, or dual single-handed weapons, or a single double-handed one. Also, not using shields will mean the player will have to work more on their dodge game, which in turn will actually be a strategy element itself, as the game now features a stamina bar, meaning it won't be possible to dodge and roll out of the way indefinitely. Coupling this with the new abilities and skills system, as we'll see further along in the video, will lead to even more variation in the approach to combat, and that's not all. As promised, the game will bring several kinds of enemies, all with different attacks and patterns towards the players, meaning it will be even more interesting to decide how to tackle them. The game will also feature brute or elite guards who will likely protect some rewards that the player might be interested in, and will obviously be tougher to fight. The game also builds up on the concept of boss fights showcased in the previous iterations of the franchise, with mostly a more grounded approach than its predecessors. As a matter of fact, some boss fights can be found throughout the main story arcs, such as a Viking called Rued that appeared in a demo, while others can be found in the world. Among these there will be legendary animals, the so-called Drengers, which are very experienced fighters that can kill with a very few hits, and some fantasy-based boss fights, which, despite their appearance, are described as a form of hallucination. All these elements add up to what seems to be one of the most interesting and varied combat systems in the series, both in terms of actual action and in terms of strategy. Then again, if you like the very fast-paced combat from Assassin's Creed Odyssey, this might not meet your taste, or might require you to get used to it. Stealth wasn't fully present in the demo, as its most coveted feature, social stealth, was seemingly unavailable. Nonetheless, stealth approaches are indeed back, and the demo showcased a little bit of what they can actually deliver. Gone are the days where it was impossible to one-shot kill even the lesser of enemies. The game is bringing back a system similar to that of Origins, where minor enemies can be killed with the push of a button. As for bigger enemies, and even for some bosses when the game allows for a stealth approach to them, the game is still providing the ability to one-shot kill them via a passive ability called Advanced Assassination, which prompts them to complete a precision minigame in order to succeed. We hope you're better than us at doing it. Moreover, players will be able to use a number of abilities and skills to their advantage to progress their stealth sessions, like throwing sleep arrows at enemies or having them distracted by their raven. The game will also present players with orange themed zones, compared to the red restricted ones. These are named distrust areas and are zones which, if entered without a hood, will have AWAR recognized by guards, but if the player puts their hood on, it will reduce the enemy detection range. In that case, guards might still want to get close to you to check who you are, but if you move swiftly enough, you will be able to avoid detection and take them out silently. The most important feature making a comeback though, and a very welcome at that, is actual proper eagle vision as it was seen in the first games of the franchise. Labeled Odin's Sight in Valhalla, this feature will allow players to spot enemies, highlighting them in red, and targets and even minor elements like foot tracks and consumable mushrooms or berries growing in the game world. We'll expect fans to be as excited as we were when they go back using it in their stealth sessions. This is where our excitement got to a full stop. Navigation and especially parkour in the demo felt heavy, slow and sometimes inelegant. Free running is similar to what was shown in Origins and Odyssey in terms of moves, but lacks the freedom and fluidity that it had in those games. This might be intentional, because AWAR is a big character, or because possibly the game aims at making the player feel the weight and suffering of climbing, but it just results in feeling slower and clunkier, while also lacking the variety it had from past games of the franchise like Assassin's Creed Unity and Syndicate. Something similar can be said of the responsiveness and animations of navigation in general. Whereas Odyssey did a good job of speeding up the start and stop animations of the character, in the demo most movements, even the most simple ones, felt a bit sluggish. Some of us had even some issues with handling the mounts and longship properly. Speaking of mounts and the longship, there are also some positive elements to such aspects of navigation. While following a path with either of them, players will now have at their disposal a new cinematic camera, which switches perspective automatically. While on the longship, players will also be able to listen to skaldic songs and enjoy stories being told by the crew.
We all remember when Eivor gave orders to attack Kjotve's clan in Avaldsnes. I knew even then our chance at victory was slim. It was a fool's errand. Eivor demanded we strike, and I am not one to disobey my superior.
Players will also be able to actively change the songs or stories they are listening to, in a similar way to how it was done in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag with the sea shanties. Still within the topic of navigation, as we know, a raven companion named Sunin will join Eivor in their quest. This time the flying companion's purpose is more oriented towards scouting locations, placing destination markers and having a bird's eye view, but it will not help in highlighting multiple enemies as it did in previous games. You can still do a barrel roll with him though. Oh, the demo also presented a nice little Easter egg. See for yourselves.
Lead me. Be my eyes.
Be my eyes, Senu.
Lastly, the game has a UI wheel to activate a few specific activities, such as whistling, meditating, calling the player's mount, fishing, activating the torch, sounding the horn to call the longship, and toggling the hood on and off. Yes, you heard that right. Most of these are used for navigation purposes, but they can also act as a quick way to toggle or initiate an activity on the spot without going through menus. The inventory does seem a bit similar to Odyssey and Origins. It is made up of 8 slots plus 4 kinds of main resources, the quiver, the rations pouch, and the bag for general items. General items contained in the bag include crafting materials, which among other things can be used to upgrade weapons and equipment items. Then it has consumables like rations and arrows, runes, and much more. A nice addition to the mix is that all 8 main elements of the inventory can be hidden and not shown on Eivor, while keeping all the stats. This in turn allows for several combinations of the looks of our main character, while we'll be waiting or hoping for a transmog system similar to that of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. There has been a partial change of direction towards how abilities and skills are conceived and managed compared to the most recent games of the franchise. In fact, now abilities and skills are two different things. Abilities are the active moves that players can use, mostly during combat but also during stealth and bow action, while skills are passive abilities that players don't control directly. Moreover, abilities are now collectibles in the game, as the player has to find the so-called books of knowledge in the world in order to be able to learn and use them. Abilities can also be upgraded if the player can find two of the same book of knowledge. Players can have up to 2 sets of 4 abilities, one for the standard abilities and one for the bow abilities, which can be triggered with the left or right shoulder button along with one of the 4 main buttons. Skills, on the other hand, are based on a more standard XP system, where reaching a certain number of XPs allows to get skill points, which in turn can be used on the skill tree, both for the actual skills and for stats enhancements. All the unlocked skill nodes will concur in the creation of a stat that describes the player's overall power, called global power. And that was it for the first part of our impressions on Assassin's Creed Valhalla. There surely is a lot to unpack here, and that's not even the tip of the iceberg. We hope to have shown a bit of light on some of the new features that the game will provide players with on November 17, 2020, the freshly announced release date of the game. As we mentioned at the beginning of the video, be sure to subscribe to our channel, as we'll have a lot more to show in the coming days, and stick around for the second part of our impressions videos, which will dive into the world, the side activities, the story and the sound department. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.